Hi, my name is Carter Zhang, and this is my presentation for the Mergers and Acquisition report. What is a merger and acquisition? Mergers and acquisition refers to the consolidation of companies or assets between two companies. A merger is a combination of two or more firms and brings it under one ownership. In a merger, a board of directors from two or more firms approve the combination and require shareholders' approval in which the company being acquired becomes a part of the acquiring company. An acquisition or takeover is when one firm acquires the stock of another company in which the acquired firm is the target. It usually doesn't involve the changing of the name or the legal structure of the company. There are also economic classification of business combination. One of them is a vertical merger, which is when a firm acquires suppliers of customers. Another is a horizontal merger, which are when competing firms combine into one entity. Another is congeneric mergers, which are firms that are related to each other but are not competitors in the market. Conglomerate mergers are two firms that combines into one with entirely different fields. A strategic merger is when a merger is made to enhance the acquirer's business position, and a financial merger is used to make money from the merging process. There are also antitrust laws established from 1890 to the 1930s that prohibit certain mergers if it can change the dynamics of the market, which can reduce the competitive nature of the economy. Laws dealing with mergers typically bars mergers that can lead to harmful effects in the economy, and according to the Federal Trade Commission, under Section 7 of the Clayton Act, it prohibits mergers and acquisition when the effect can substantially lessen competition or creates a monopoly. What are the motives behind mergers and acquisitions? One of them is synergies, the combining of firms that to improve performance and the value of the company. Another, it can reduce costs and give marketing opportunities through economies of scale. It can lead to faster growth instead of growing the company internally. And there is also diversification to reduce risk. Having a collection of a diverse business can make it less risky than concentrating in only one area. Having different business lines can diversify your company's risk because different business lines can offset each other. It can also reduce the amount of tax you pay as well. An example of the largest mergers and acquisition is when Vodafone acquired Massman. This was one of the largest M&A deal in history and was resisted by the majority of Germans. They were worried the takeover can lead to the end of Germany's businesses and was the largest acquisition mobile operator. This acquisition helped set the tone for future mergers and price wars within the telecom space. The deal was worth over $180 billion. Another example is when Verizon took control of their wireless unit. For 10 years, Verizon sought to acquire 45% of Vodafone's stake in Verizon and were finally successful in 2013. This U.S. telecom agreed to pay $130 billion to take full control of its wireless unit. This deal helped Verizon increase its financial strength, improve their infrastructure, and also increase the competitiveness in the U.S. market. What are the advantages of mergers and acquisition? One, the most common advantage is to merge with another firm in order to have more control over the market. By increasing the market share, they can influence prices. Another is reducing costs through economies of scale. By sharing resources and services, it can give you a competitive advantage over other competition. And it can also give you tax benefits, as described earlier. And it can also reduce entry barriers because by merging with another firm, you can reduce the cost and time it takes to gain access to different markets. What are the disadvantages of mergers and acquisition? The loss of skilled workers in a company. A merger or an acquisition can lead to people losing their jobs because of the restructuring of the business. The company can also incur high costs of reskilling workers due to the changing nature of the business. And a merger and acquisition can also lead to a reduction in competition, thus leading the new company to have higher pricing power, which can hurt customers as well. There can also be integration issues that arises with M&As. There may be frictions or internal competition that may occur among the staff and workers of the company. And there can also be hostile takeovers that may require more money for the deal to be made. This can lead to increased costs and may lead to a financial fallout. What are some examples of a cross-border M&A? When Micro Focus bought Norwell, this was a move that collected a huge number of infrastructure software from Novell on the London Stock Exchange. This deal was worth 1.2 billion US dollars, and the deal made sense since both companies are established enterprise software vendors with global marketing reach and little overlap of their products or customers. Another example is Teleglobe and Excel merger in 1998. This was done through a 3.1 billion stock swap and will combine the global telecommunication service of the Montreal-based Teleglobe with the commercial and residential long distance and paging services that Excel offers in the U.S. and will give access to Canadian customers as well. What are some examples of mergers and acquisition failures? One example is the New York Central and Pennsylvania Railroad in 1968. When both companies merged, they became the sixth largest corporation in America, but just 2 years later, the company filed for bankruptcy, making it the largest corporation in bankruptcy at the time. This was caused by the increasing trend of customers and businesses to use driving and trucking instead of railroads. This is why it is important to know what the trend is and what trend is happening in the market at the time. Another example is when Quaker Oats and Snapple's. Quaker Oats acquired Snapple, and despite warnings from Wall Street that they were paying $1 billion too much for the deal, the company had problems with how to run the company and lost over $1.6 million. Quaker Oats thought it could leverage its relationship with supermarkets and large retailers, but more than half of Snapple's sales came from smaller channels such as gas stations and convenience stores. Therefore, they also made mistakes with advertising on Snapple's product, which led to Coca-Cola and Pepsi to take away many of their customers. This shows an important lesson that you should understand the operation of the company you're acquiring and the customers. A poorly matched partner can bring in too many challenges for the company in which they may not be prepared for. What are the size and growth of a merger and acquisition? Since 1985, more than 325,000 mergers and acquisitions have been announced with a value of $349 billion. The compounding annual growth rate for the number of deals from 1985 to 2018 was 5.86%, while the value grew at 5.32%. There were 6 waves of merger activities in the U.S. as well. The first wave was from 1897 to 1904. During this time period, horizontal mergers transformed the United States into a nation of industrial giants, and this led rise to some monopolies as well. The second wave was the Roaring Twenties between 1916 and 1929. It began with the World War I and ended with the market crash in 1929, and horizontal mergers led to oligopolies within the U.S. during that time. The third wave was the swinging 60s between 1965 and 1969. This led to emerging conglomerate mergers, which gave access to different fields in the market. This was also a period of stock market driven and hostile takeovers began to emerge. Before 1970s, hostile takeovers were uncommon. As of 1974, Inco acquired ESP and was assisted by investment bank Morgan Stanley. After this incident, hostile takeovers became more common and acceptable. The fourth wave is mega mergers between 1981 and 1990. Huge giant firms began to emerge, usually by industry leaders. The fifth wave is a globalization between 1992 and 2000. This started after the recession of 1991 to 1992, and many international mergers began. However, it declined as of September 11, 2001. The sixth wave is private equity between 2003 and 2008. Private companies began buying companies for financial reasons and ended with the financial crisis of 2008. Thank you, and that was my presentation.